I just married the guy for money, and I'm trying to get him a green card so he gets paid. So I get paid by the for having a illegal immigrant or whatever. He gets the green card, and I get the money for it. So I'm like, so you moved the illegal immigrant in my house, and you got him in here with my 5-year-old son, and you getting paid for it, and you telling me you don't have my money. She was like, no, I don't have it, but what you could do, help you get, I could help you get your money back.
Well, what did you do? I'm not interested in the conversation. What did you do?
That's what happened. I was pissed. I just grabbed it. I choked her.
Excuse me, I would appreciate you watching your language.
Ooh, man, even that scared me. You don't want to get on Miss Renatz's bad side, but you're going to find out why she does not like this man. And it's not just her. Mr. Mirabella comes in with a handful of mic drops. This guy is a serial offender against women.
I really thought I was going to die.
Bria Monday doesn't take life for granted. The mother of an 8-year-old says she narrowly escaped death at the hands of this man, CHADDRICK Piper. Piper was just convicted after he tried to kill her, and he won't see freedom for a long time after he was prosecuted as a habitual offender.
He got arrested 5 times in 17 months. He kept getting out, kept finding me with my restraining order, with all the implements that were in place that still didn't keep him away.
Monday credits her survival from going to authorities, but these pictures of her bumps and bruises are what she's trying to forget about. She claims Piper strangled her so hard it popped blood vessels in her eye. And that's not all.
He tried to cut it off. It's on the back of my neck.
He didn't like the tattoo or what?
It's his name. He said I didn't deserve it anymore.
So we just heard directly from the survivor, and he's going to talk about this scenario. He got out of prison day one. He went to her house and did that. And then he got locked up in 2015, and he's already up for parole in 2022. If you can imagine. I'll unpack it with all the details at the end.
Morning.
Morning.
Piper? Would you introduce yourself for the record, sir? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
My name is CHADDRICK Piper, 504-435.
All right, Mr. Piper, my name is Cheryl Renatza. My colleagues on the panel today, seated to my left is Mr. Tony Mirabella, to my right is Mr. Pete Freeman. You've been through this process before, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am.
You were seen back in 2018 by a parole panel. Were denied. Do you remember the reason you were denied?
Yes, ma'am. They say victim opposition.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think you had some write-ups. You had some institutional write-ups.
At the time?
Also,
I'm not sure at the time. I know it was victim opposition for sure.
yeah, there was law enforcement opposition, victim opposition, and then you had some write-ups that. So what's your conduct record look like now?
Now my conduct record, as of, I believe I'm about 14 months right off free.
Oh, good. You remember what the last one was for? I'm trying to get to that in my record. Here we go.
Yes, ma'am.
He had a rule 22 on 2/22/21.
Yes, ma'am.
He had a rule 10 on 10/20/21 that was dismissed.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I do see that. So tell us about the theft in 2021, February 21.
Yes, ma'am. Theft here is like it could be theft by fraud. Like if you give an officer the wrong information.
Just tell me what happened. I know the rule.
What happened was there was this officer that was a cadet, and she had a relationship with one of my friends that was in here. So I knew that she was being investigated. So what I did, I went to her and I was like, listen, they got eyes on you and you probably need to back up doing what you're doing. And she ended up calling the supervisor and asking the supervisor if they was really investigating, and the supervisor told her no. So she turned around and was like, okay, well, write him up for lying. And he wrote me up for lying, which was the theft by fraud. And what ended up happening was I went to the lockup, and she ended up getting fired 2 weeks later for exactly what I told her. But of course, they're not going to tell her that, yeah, we investigating. I should have stayed out of it, but I didn't. So
Yeah,
that's
you
what
should
happened.
have. You
Yes,
should
ma'am.
have. All right, so tell us about why you're in jail today.
What happened was I had a toxic relationship with my son's mother. So what happened was I ended up getting out of jail, and I had $1,700 in the bank. But prior to that, because I got arrested like right after I got off of work or whatever. So I had $1,700 in the bank, and I had just gotten paid. I stayed in jail for about 9 months, and when I got out, I had it on my mind that I was just about to go home, grab my things, grab my money, and go move to another place. But when I got out, I went to the ATM machine, and I had $48 left in my bank account. So I was pissed. I called my mom and was like, "Mom, come get me, take me home." So my mom brought me home where we lived at, where me and my ex-girlfriend lived. So when I went to the house, I was like, I walked in the house and was like, where's my money? And she was like, well, let me explain everything to you first. Or like, explain what? So she was like, well, I ended up getting married, and I just married the guy for money, and I'm trying to get him a green card so he gets paid, so I get paid for having a illegal immigrant or whatever. He gets the green card, and I get the money for it. So I'm like, so you moved the illegal immigrant in my house, and you got him in here with my 5-year-old son, and you getting paid for it, and you telling me you don't have my money. She was like, no, I don't have it, but what you could do, help you get I could help you get your money back.
Well, what did you do? I'm not interested in the conversation. What did you do?
That's what happened. I was pissed. I just grabbed it. I choked her.
Excuse me, I would appreciate you watching your language.
Okay, I was mad. I was angry. So what ended up happening was I grabbed her, I choked her, and I ended up getting unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling and a domestic dispute for choking my son's mother.
Okay, so let's talk about this then. What happened in 2010? East Baton Rouge, I'm seeing arrest at least or charges, second-degree kidnapping, 3 different counts of second-degree kidnapping. What happened there?
I was found not guilty. I went to trial. I was found not guilty of kidnapping because I actually didn't kidnap anybody.
Okay, what about violation of protective order?
I had a violation of protective order. I ended up going to the house because we had a argument. So I went to the house to go get my things from there, and I couldn't just go to the house, so I went anyway. That's what happened. And they gave me a violation of protective order.
Okay, and tell me about, I'm looking at a 2013 domestic abuse battery.
That was with
But to simple battery and were sentenced to 6 months.
yeah, that's the 6 months that I did when I just got out or something like that. I believe that's the same one. It was me and the same baby mama, me and Bria, the one that I'm arrested for now. I'm doing this time for now.
And so was there a protective order in that situation?
I don't believe so.
And then, of course, we have this one that happened in 2000. Well, there's another one in 2014, huh?
That was us. Yes, ma'am.
Looks like it's a different date. So you have a history of domestic issues.
That was me and my
What you've been doing since you've been in jail in terms of programs?
I've gone to Malachi Dares. I've taken anger management, and I'm in this program. Well, not a program, but it's a class called Pillars of Life. That's why we
What's
deal
it
with
called? I'm
Pillars
sorry.
of Pillars of Life.
Pillars of Life. Okay.
That's
What's that about?
that's about manhood. That's about this characteristic traits of manhood, like his pride, his priority, his purpose, his position, and his assignment. And we just deal with characters of men and doing things that we need to do in order to be better men than what we were before we came.
What'd you learn so far?
Because what I've learned so far is pretty much everything is about choices that you make. And the choices that I made in the past, they affected everything that happened today. They affect more people than just me. So I don't make the same choices that I used to make. I don't do the things that I used to do, and I've become a person that thinks now instead of just reacting off of emotions. I don't react off of my emotions no more, and I just do things completely different from what I used to do. Matter of fact, I got some advice from my warden right here, Mr. Turner, who told me one day, he was like, Piper, man, everything isn't as personal as you make it, but you always take everything personal. And I used to do that. So what he told me was like, everybody is put in a position to do exactly the job that they're doing. And once you figure that out, you won't just take everything personal because it's not a personal attack on you. It's just the job that we have to do. So I thought about it and I was like, you know what, you absolutely right. And I just been reacting off of the way that I feel about things, thinking that everything was just personal, but it really wasn't. It's a job that they had to do, and I had to just realize that the choices that I make, regardless of what it is going to affect something. So I don't make the choices that I used to make anymore. I just think about things now, and I think about the consequences, and I think about who is going to affect beyond just me. And that's what I do now. I try to grow, and I try to make the steps that I need to take in order to.
Tell me what you learned from anger management. And that's words of wisdom from Warden Turner. I'm glad you heeded his words, because it seems to me this morning you're placing blame for all this trouble you've been in over the years involving your domestic partner, I guess we'll call it that. So what have you learned from anger management?
I actually don't place blame on them. I take responsibility.
No, I said learn from anger management.
What did I learn from anger management was you don't have to give in to the anger and the things that you feel, because there's more than one side of the story. You have to have compassion for the other side of for other people, and you have to actually understand that the anger will take over and have you doing things that you not gonna like in the long run. Like, it's gonna be consequences to it. So instead of me just reacting and feeling like, okay, because I'm mad, I need to do this, because I feel a certain type of way, I need to justify what I'm doing by hurting you. Instead, I fell back and got to the point where, like, listen, I keep doing the same things. I'm gonna keep on getting in these situations where it's not gonna help me, or it's not gonna help my kids. And what I learned about from Malachi dads and things of that nature was like, my kids are starting to be affected by my decisions, because I have a son right now. He's 14 and he's going through things in school, and he's being the exact same person that I was at his age. And I'm like, man, I didn't have a father when I was coming up, so I don't want to put him in the same position that I was in. And being that I was the one that's doing everything that I was doing, I was actually doing the same thing to them. So I stopped doing all that. And I'm like, look, if I'm gonna help you, I need to be a better person than that. So
How long you been in jail?
a little bit over 7 years.
So half your son's life?
Yes, ma'am. My son was 7 at the time. He's twice that age now. He's 14 now. He's to the age where he needs to, well, I need to be able to reach him. So what I did, I actually got into the youth offender program here and facilitated that so I could learn how to reach out to younger men and learn exactly what it was that was on their minds, like the type of things that they're into, so I can relate to them. And now I understand how they think, and I understand how everything affects everything. So I don't react to things as I used to.
Well, I see you. Tell us about your substance abuse history.
I actually don't have a substance abuse problem. I got into substance abuse to celebrate recovery because I just wanted to know how they think. I wanted to know what it was that they go through, because I didn't understand drug use because I don't use drugs. So it's like I just wanted to see things from their perspective. So I just got into celebrate recovery because I just wanted to be part of it. I wanted to learn about it.
And so you've never used drugs ever?
I never used drugs. I used to drink a little bit, but it was in moderation.
Did you finish high school?
No, ma'am.
You got your GED
Yes, ma'am.
since you've been in jail?
No, ma'am. I didn't get a GED in jail. I actually went to Job Corps, where I went and got the electrician trade. And I got the GED at like 17 years old. So when I got out of Job Corps, I couldn't go straight to work. I was too young. So I had to wait a year. And I ended up getting into the military.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Marabella has questions.
Mr. You indicated that you were in a toxic relationship. Tell me what you mean by toxic relationship.
Basically, neither one of us really had understanding of the other person, and even though we liked the things that we got out of it, as far as like the physical attraction, maybe the money, things of that nature, we weren't good for each other because neither one of us really had a grip on our behavior. We used to be
How many times have you been arrested over incidents involving that victim?
about 4.
How many times have you been arrested involving other victims?
About 5, 6.
Those are all toxic relationships too?
Yes, sir.
And different women? How many different?
They were my kids' mothers. It was like 2,
How many?
about 2.
So why so much anger against women?
Coming up, well,
Fight with a man? You ever got arrested for beating up a man?
yes, I have.
I don't see it on here. Where is it?
In here,
Every one of these are domestic abuse batteries or some sort of violation of a protective order. Why so much violence towards women? What have you learned about your personality that makes you commit violence towards women?
actually, my own father was killed in a domestic abuse relationship with my mother. Actually, like my whole life I've come up under this same type of thing. Like I've been exposed to it for years, and it's not like I didn't know that it was wrong, but I used to justify somebody else doing something to me and take it out on them. I used to justify my behavior by maybe somebody would cheat or we'll get into an argument or something of that nature, and I'd be like, well, you did wrong, so justifiably, I felt like I was justified by being able to go back and strike at people, which is completely, I'm against that now because I understand.
So how many times did you actually go to jail for beating on and strangling women?
4.
I'm sorry?
About 4.
How much time did you serve on all of those?
A couple of months in between. This is the longest that I've ever been here. 7 months, 7 years, a little bit over 7 years.
And what do you think these victims feel about the way you treated them?
I know what they feel. They're hurt, number one, because I'm the father of their children. And after that, I know they feel like I actually went through victim opposition here through reentry, and I actually talked to a woman whose daughter was killed by a man. And understanding it now, I regret everything that happened between me and my kid's mother.
Now, you have how many children?
I have 4.
And you have 3 mothers for those children?
I have, yes, sir.
And you've been arrested for domestic abuse battery against all 3 of those mothers of your children?
No, sir. 2.
This one, and I thought you said 2 out of state.
I have 2 children out of state.
But what about your arrest? You've been arrested out of state. There's charges out of Virginia. There are other charges. What about those? Who were those people? Who were the victims in that case?
My kid's mother.
All right, that's all the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Warden Turner, is there anything you can tell us about Mr. Piper?
His last write-up was in 2021, and he's a pride member here at DCI. He hasn't had a write-up in the last year.
Good. Okay. Thank you. We have some folks here who are in support and want to speak. We have Mr. Ray Mason, Mr. Piper's brother. Good morning.
Morning, how are you all doing?
Good. Go ahead, sir. What would you like us to know about your brother?
My brother, despite his past history, I've learned a lot from my brother. He was in the military. I mean, I I mean, I know everybody has a past. Like I have a past. I mean, some of the people here know me, you know, in this meeting. You know, I have a past, but it's not about the past. It's about building a better present. You know, he has a big support system. You know, if he was to come home, he'd be going straight to work. And you know, we building on love. Like, you know, we don't want to live through our past. Like we want to just build a better present and future. Like that's all, you know, we really looking forward to. I mean, regardless of, you know, the pain that's been inflicted on everybody in this situation, because I haven't seen him in years. You know, he hasn't seen his kids in years. He hasn't seen his mother in years. I mean, this is not helping us. Like, this isn't a part of the solution to keep him locked away. Like, I mean, it's horrible as that might sound to me. I mean, I know people might not see it how I see it, but jail is never the answer. Like, you know, and I mean, it might be circumstances where you might have people, you know, who are raised different and are bad people, but he's not a bad person. Like, there's real bad people out there, and you know they're out here. So, and they just might not be caught. So, I mean, he deserves his freedom too.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mason. We appreciate you joining us this morning. We also do have Mr. Piper's mother, Miss Mason. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. How are you all?
Good. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that I'm sure I've made some mistakes, decisions that I responded to life in a way that I shouldn't have. Wasn't as positive as I should have been with some decisions that I've made, like Chad. And I'm sure like some of you or all of you that are in the meeting. And because I didn't make the best choices, still I suffered consequences and I became a better person through some of those bad choices that I made. And I'd like to say that Chad has become a better person. I know Chad has become a better person through some of the mistakes or bad decisions that he's made. We love Chad dearly. Chad loves his children dearly. I know those mothers were conflicting among one another at one time in regards to Chad. This one wanted to be with them, that one wanted to be with them. And, you know, it was just a lot of confusion, but that's in the past. His kids have gotten older, much older. I've gotten much older. I haven't seen my grandkids because of all the conflict with the mothers in quite some time. That hurts me. I would just love to see my grandchildren again. I would just like the mothers to just come to some kind of resolve where some kind of medium where Chad is concerned, and I would like to be in my grandkids' lives. I would like Chad to come home. I'm sure Chad would love to be in a relationship with his children after all this time. I know they miss Chad. And the mothers have always used the kids to try to come against Chad, and in the process hurt me because I love my grandkids. And so I'm asking that you guys would just please allow Chad to come home. Give him another chance. We've made bad decisions. We all have. Chad has learned from his bad mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes. We all deserve a second chance. We all deserve to be free. Chad has paid the price. And I'm sure that he's sorry for whatever he's done in the past. I'm sure that he sees that it hasn't benefited him at all. He sees his mistakes. And I ask that you all will give him another chance to just rectify the present.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Mason. Thank you for your comments this morning. We also have a representative from the DA's office in East Baton Rouge this morning, Ms. Barbera.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to compliment Ms. Frazier on the pre-parole investigation that she provided for the members of the board. We've reviewed a lot of these over the years, and I found it to be extremely detail-oriented and informative, and it was very helpful, and I do appreciate that. I certainly hope that the things Mr. Piper has told you this morning are true and that he has changed. He has a good time parole release date in 2025. And that will be the opportunity for him to prove to you that he has changed. Unfortunately, all he has proven to us thus far is that he is a violent man and he will reoffend. He has done so repeatedly. He has been given many second chances. And I ask that you please deny his parole today and place into his record when he is released on good time parole, that there be every measure in effect to protect the victim in this case, who, as you know, is the victim in his previous case. The day he was released on parole is when he went there and strangled her again. One of the considerations in parole is not only a matter of public safety, but the safety of the victim in this matter. And my fear is that if he has not changed, he will make those threats that he made of this being her last day to live come true. And we ask respectfully that his parole be denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barbera. We appreciate the input from the DA's office. Mr. Piper.
Yeah.
Is there a brief statement you'd like to make before we vote?
Yes, ma'am. I understand everything that the DA said. I understand everything that my mother and my brother said. I understand how you all may feel. But I know today, being that I've seen things from a different perspective. In 2015, we never had COVID-19. We didn't have the opportunity to sit down and see life as we see it now. The way I see things now are completely different from the way that I seen things in 2015. I understand my history. I understand that to the fullest. But I need you all to know that I'm not that person anymore. And the things that I've done then, I wouldn't do the same things now. I wouldn't hurt my baby. I wouldn't hurt my son's mother. I wouldn't hurt my children's mother, because I understand how that affects everyone. I understand my choices that I've made. And I know that choices pretty much dictate how everything else has turned out. People don't create circumstances, don't create people. People create their circumstances. So understanding the pain that I've caused now, I would never hurt my children. I would never hurt my children's mothers. I wouldn't hurt anyone that's in my circle of influence now, because I understand the choices that I made and what I did. So I accept responsibility for that. But I need you to know that I'm not that person anymore. And I would never be that person anymore, because once you understand things as they are, you can never go back. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And being that I understand those results, what I got from that, I would never do that again. And I apologize for the things that I've done to them. I just want a better life for me. I want a better life for my kids. And I want them to know that their dad is actually somebody that loves them and will support them and is going to do the things that he had to do, because it affects everyone. And I'm not going to make the same choices that I made. Even if I have to stop in front of the stop sign, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not even getting traffic tickets anymore. You'll never see me incarcerated again. And I promise you that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Piper. I appreciate that you recognize the issue. I still have concerns. I mean, you have a write-up in your jacket that's just February of last year for poor choice or decision on your part. Today's not the day for me. I am concerned about the history of domestic abuse, the history of violation of protective order, and the history of violence in your record. So today, and the proximity of your good time date, which is in 2025, as has been indicated by the DA's office. My vote today is to deny your parole. Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Piper, it sounds like you're on the right track. It sounds like the things that you were saying are the things that you need to take to heart. and to understand. You have a long history of domestic abuse. My count is at least 8 arrests in in Louisiana having to do with either domestic abuse battery or violation of protective orders, and you've got charges in other states. That concerns me deeply. What more concerns me is, as Ms. Bonazza has pointed out, your disciplinary record. I mean, here you tell me in 2016 you made this turn, and that's when you realized that all of these things were out the window. But since 2019, you had an aggravated disobedience. 2019, you had a defiance. 2019, you had another defiance. 2020, you had a write-up for fighting. Those are not the actions of a man who understands choices in what anger does to that person. I want you to look at those things and to look deeply in yourself and keep working on yourself. Perhaps the next time your vote might be different, but you do have a good time release date coming up fairly soon, so you'll be getting out. But I hope that you look inwardly to make sure when you get out, you don't come back with the same kinds of things. So my vote today would likewise be to deny.
Mr. Freeman.
I concur with my fellow board members and I also vote to deny.
Mr. Gleason, you got some work. You have the opportunity to do some more work. Today, your parole's been denied. Take advantage of any opportunity you can. Good luck to you, sir.
This monster is one of the most dangerous that we've covered, and it is terrifying to think that he's going to have a good time date in like about a year from this in 2025. I mean, this is one of those cases where you are going to hear about a homicide and then everyone's going to say, how did that happen? How was he allowed to get out? How could it be? Well, I frankly, I don't know how this happened because he went to a jury. He had a jury trial. He was found guilty. Was it the judge that screwed up? He only got 6 years and 4 years to run consecutively, but he has a good time and he has no parole for the first 2 years. That's why he was able to have parole 2 years after doing this. Wait till you find out what he did in Virginia. You won't believe it. I mean, you might believe it, but the idea that he's out and about makes it just more insane. So what Richard found was a quote from a DA in 2008 out of Norfolk, Virginia, is a child that died from his abuse. CHADDRICK Piper pleaded guilty to malicious wounding and assault battery. Piper was not charged with murder because his son died more than a year after the incident. Quoting the DA, "I remember him well," Harris said. "A beautiful, chubby-cheeked baby. He was blind, deaf, and severely brain damaged from the violent shaking. Yet I remember his beautiful smile and how he loved snuggling when I held him." And that was 2008. I just don't get it. How is it possible? Why is he out? Why is he free to terrorize? Why will he be getting out in a year? You got to make it make sense. You have to protect the innocent. You have to punish. You have to. This isn't even just about retribution, which clearly there hasn't been enough, but you have to have compassion for the survivors, for children, for women, for the vulnerable. I'm kind of at a loss of words. And then, you hear, and it kind of all makes sense. You hear the brother and the mother, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and they're standing up for him, and they're trying to protect him. And the mother says, what's the brother say? There are real bad people out there. They just haven't been caught yet. So he deserves his freedom too. Wow, that's great logic there, huh? And mother, I'm sure I made mistakes. I should have been more positive, just like all of you made mistakes. And uh, I suffered, but I became a better person. And Chad is also going to become a better person. Now, and then she goes on to blame it on the mothers. The mothers, they were all conflicting. They all wanted to be with him. They are all just throwing themselves at him. And it's their problem. And then she starts to cry. I just want to be in my grandkids' lives. And it's like, you want to be in their lives? You should want to be in their lives. But what you shouldn't do, you have a choice. Your son, who is a serial abuser, a dangerous man who was the cause of one of your own grandchildren's deaths. Why he's not still in prison for that is beyond me. You need to separate yourself from him. And I'm pretty sure that if you did that, you would be in their lives. But he'll be out next year anyways. I mean, here's just one of the appeals. On Monday, the defendant had an on and off. Okay, Bray Monday and the defendant had an on and off again relationship for several years. They had one son together in 2013 and 2014. While living together in Baton Rouge, the defendant and Bray were involved in several altercations wherein the defendant physically attacked her. In October 2013, the defendant was arrested and charged with DV involving strangulation. In April 2014, she obtained a protective order against him. In December of 2014, the defendant was again arrested for DV, as well as a violation of a protective order. He pled guilty to the charge and was sentenced to incarceration. While the defendant was incarcerated, she married another man, although according to him, it was an illegal alien just for money. Okay. On February 3rd, 2015, the defendant was released from jail. So he's released from jail a year later. Wow. Great job, system, protecting everyone. Now, the second he's released from jail, and this probably won't come to a surprise to you at all, mom picks him up and takes him to her house. Okay. Now, after his mom delivers this monster to the house, someone who he's not allowed to be anywhere near, he rings the doorbell. Before she could answer, the defendant walked in. So the door's open, I guess. Closed the door and locked it. While mom's sitting outside in the car, I'm sure, just waiting for her son to finish abusing the mother of her grandchild. The defendant asked Bree about the other man, and they began arguing. The defendant made Bree go to the bathroom and run water in the bathtub. With water in the tub, the defendant pushed her with her back facing the water and held her down. She hit and kicked the defendant, and he eventually pulled her out of the tub. They continued to struggle. The defendant again began choking her, and she lost consciousness. When she regained consciousness, she changed her clothes and tried to get out of her apartment. However, the defendant stopped her, slapped her head, and punched her in the face. Wow. On that note, I love how Mr. Marabella just like threw it down, laid it down, and was like, you don't fight with any other men, do you? He's like, I do. He's like, well, I don't see any of the record. It's not in the records, and that's because he doesn't. He's a coward. And also Miss Renata, she had it out for him. I loved seeing this side of Miss Renata. I just loved it. She jumps in when he tries to explain one of the rule violations. She's like, I know the rules. And she does. She was like the assistant warden of Angola for like a decade or something. She knows the rules. And then she got really upset about the language when he said pissed off. And it's like, you don't want to use that. That's not even that bad a language. The other parole areas we cover, like in Connecticut, for example, they literally can curse like sailors, every other word, every word, the F word, whatever. And the parole board forget about reprimand. They just go along with it. If you haven't seen those parole hearings, links in the description. I have a second channel where I cover those Connecticut parole hearings, and they are wild. I mean, Louisiana would, their tops would blow if they saw how much cursing goes on in these parole hearings. And they shouldn't go on. A parole hearing is an interview for if you can succeed in the new world. And if you're cursing in front of your parole officers, then you're not going to get through a job interview. And it's crazy to me that Connecticut just, I've never heard them once tell someone to not curse. That blows my mind, frankly. The defendant's mother came into the apartment and he stopped attacking. Well, she came in, so maybe she did save her life. Who knows? All three of them gathered the defendant's belongings, including clothes and 2 televisions, and brought them to the defendant's mother's vehicle. Wow, they took the TVs. Unbelievable. After the defendant left with his mother, Bree called the police and made a written statement. So the mom actually helped take the TVs. She should have gotten prosecuted. The defendant testified at trial. The defendant testified that she invited him into the apartment. He also denied that he held her under the water and choked her. And again, through all of this, I don't know. I know the statute has to allow for more time, but the judge didn't give more time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should look at the legislation and see what the maximum are, but I don't know what they tried him for exactly. Were there some counts the jury didn't find him guilty of? That's not clear to me. There is no forced entry and unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling. When the defendant rang the doorbell, she asked a few times, why wouldn't it be home invasion? Why wouldn't they get him for violation of restraining? Why wouldn't you they even got him as an habitual offender. How is it that he only got this amount of time? Like 8 years with parole eligibility after 2. Was it 7 years? When she saw the defendant, she was in shock. The defendant had been in jail for previously attacking her. She thought the defendant was still in jail when the door opened. Can you imagine that shock? Can you imagine that fear? Can you even imagine that? And she had no idea the defendant was released that day. When the defendant walked into her apartment, he locked the door. As she backed away, the defendant told her that today she was going to die. She made it clear at trial that she had not given the defendant permission to enter the apartment. The following exchange with her on redirect examination reveals her state of mind. See, here she is on the stands, fighting against him, standing up against him. Did you believe when he said you were going to die? Yes. Why? Because of our history. I knew that he was going to be mad, and he felt like I took everything from him because of a previous conversation. I already knew that's how he felt. I ruined his life. No, you did not ruin his life. He ruined his life. The defendant had some belongings at the apartment is of no moment. She had a protective order against the defendant that was in effect from April 24, 2014 to April 24, 2015. The defendant signed the protective order on April 28, 2014, acknowledging that he understood and accepted and agreed to comply with all conditions and orders therein. The order provided that the defendant not contact her or go within 100 yards of her. It further ordered that the defendant not go to her residence or household. The defendant admitted at trial that he knew he had a protective order against him, but he went to the apartment anyways. The defendant also knew that she had married another man, or at least was seeing another man, while the defendant was in jail. Corporal Edward Nicholson with the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office testified that he interviewed the defendant, who told the corporal that he knew he had a protective order against him and that he knew he was not supposed to be at the apartment. Corporal Nicholson also indicated that he believed she was the only person on the apartment lease at the time of the incident offense. In any event, it is clear that when the defendant went to the apartment, he was aware that he can no longer live there and was not allowed to be there. The defendant argued that the evidence was insufficient to support a conviction of unauthorized entry of inhabited dwelling. Why didn't you get him on home invasion? The victim had filed a restraining order against the defendant, who is the father of the victim's young daughter. The victim testified, and the defendant were planning to marry the following summer. The defendant argued his entry into the apartment was authorized because the victim did not ask him to leave immediately. The Fifth Circuit found that the evidence was sufficient for a rational terror to the fact to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant intentionally entered the victim's home without authorization. Great. I'm lost, man. I am. Again, I don't know that, give the DA credit for taking this to trial, but and then being found guilty. But why was he not given more time? This has got to fall on the judge. Affirmed sentences, habitual offender adjudication sentence vacated, remanded for. So wait a minute. He won an appeal? Is that what happened? Mr. Piper, your lawyer says that you want to go ahead and admit that you're a third felony offender rather than having the hearing. Is that correct? Yes, sir. The trial court found the defendant to be a third felony habitual offender, then sentenced him on each count. Generally, the failure of the trial court to advise the defendant of his right to hearing and his right to remain silent is not considered reversible error, where the state has offered competent evidence of the defendant's status of habitual offender. When the defendant's guilt, however, is proven by his own stipulation or admission without having been informed of his right to hearing or his right to remain silent by either the court or the attorney, there is a reversible error. In this regard, the implicit integral expert of the requirement is that the duty inform the defendant of his right to remain silent. In this case, while the defendant stipulated convictions and presumed his identity, the state offered no competent evidence of the defendant's status of habitual offender at the hearing. The state, in fact, offered no evidence at all. Accordingly, there was no proof introduced of the defendant's identity as to the alleged predicate offenses. Thus, on the record before us, we are constrained to find that the admission by the defendant without prior advisement of his rights to remain silent, as well as the absent of documented proof the state requires reversal of habitual. So that's what it was, okay? So they messed up. They did want to get him for more time. They did get him on the habitual, but he won the appeal because they simply made some minor technical mistakes, but still mistakes. Wow. Well, at least there's sense to it. At least we know why he's not locked up for a longer period of time. It's a legal technicality that might cost someone their life. What was he initially sentenced for before this appeal? Habitual offenders can get life. Sorry, this is taking so long. Oh, look at that. It was home invasion. The defendant was charged in a bill of information of DV and home invasion. The defendant pled not guilty and waived his right to a jury trial following a bench trial. So it wasn't jury, it was bench. The defendant found guilty as charged in count 1. On count 2, he was found guilty of the responsive lesser and included. So they did charge him with home invasion. So good on the DA. The judge said it wasn't home invasion. It was unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling. So shame on you, judge. Then the state said, we're not done. We're filing the habitual offender bill. And he was sentenced. The defendant was adjudicated a third felony habitual offender. And for the DB conviction, he was sentenced to 6 years of hard labor for the first 2 years to be served without benefit of parole. For unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling conviction, he was sentenced to 4 years. That's 10. The sentences were run consecutively. But he appeals. Again, I don't understand. I'm still missing one thing, if he was going to get more time as an habitual offender or if he won just a few years. And that part is not clear to me. If any of you do know, put in the comment section, I'll pin it. And I'll leave this, in the description. But can you even imagine that he basically killed his baby and Virginia, and that's just like an afterthought? He'll be out in a year, and this is going to be scary, and we'll keep tabs on it. If you want to keep track, we have a playlist called Return of, and I do expect we will see him again. I think we only have to pray that it's not because of a homicide. Thank you, Richard, for the info, and help the channel reach 100,000 subscribers. With that, I'll let you go.
Love doesn't conquer all.
She had this message to the hundreds of women and men in her shoes.
If you know in your heart of heart that you've done what you can do in that relationship and it's not getting better and it's only getting worse, you can't look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day, and it's time to go.